Hey everyone, Jay here from Christian Music Review and Kingdom Builder. We did a recent promotion asking you, the fans, to send in questions for us to ask STRYPER's Michael Sweet about his new and upcoming solo record, I'm Not Your Suicide, and his autobiography, Honestly, My Life in STRYPER Revealed. And here are the two questions we picked. Enjoy. All right, well, the question number one comes from Eric Schelling, and he asks, Michael, how does living with OCD and ADHD have been both a challenge and a strength for you relative to being the main songwriter and producer in the band, and how do you cope with this in everyday life? Does it impact interpersonal relationships with the bands at times?
It definitely impacts interpersonal relationships with my wife and my daughter, because a lot of times I'm not focusing on things I should be focusing on. You know, when my daughter's graduating, and it's one of the biggest events in her life and proudest events of our lives, and I'm sitting there focusing on a song or, you know, on the phone talking about the band or whatever. You know what I mean? That's a bit of a form of my ADHD kicking in. I hyper-focus on other things. Like when it comes to the music and making albums, I hyper-focus on that. So literally when we start on day one till the final day, that's all I do. Mm-hmm. Is just that album. And that's where the ADHD is a good thing. Where it's a bad thing is when I got to focus on other things.
Right.
And take care of other situations and people and whatnot. The OCD, it definitely helps too. We touched on that a little bit earlier. It just helps me to strive and try and you know, reach for the stars in terms of perfection and making the album as perfect as it can be.
Well, I can definitely sympathize with you. I have ADHD too. I've had it my whole life, and can either work for you or work against you.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, there's meds for it and whatnot. And truthfully, I don't take meds. I tried some meds, and I didn't feel right. Some people they work for, and it really helps them. Maybe there's some med out there for me that it would help. And you know, I don't know. I just don't. I never really thought about it. It's not a situation where I can't focus on anything, and I'm just you know, useless and not able to get anything done. It's not like that. Mm-hmm. I know there's different forms of it, different levels of OCD and ADHD, and I think hopefully I pray that my levels are a little on the lower side.
Well, question number two comes from Tom Branderhorst, and he asks, Michael, what have you been able to do creatively with your new solo album, I'm Not Your Suicide, that maybe you wouldn't consider doing in a STRYPER album? Your previous albums, maybe with the exception of Truth, brought a unique side of Michael Sweet to fans that we didn't necessarily hear before in STRYPER.
Well, as I touched on earlier as well, it gives me the freedom to stretch out and try things that I would never want to try on a STRYPER album. Like I said, you know, a country song on a STRYPER album or a song like This Time on a STRYPER album. Those probably wouldn't work. People want to hear the screams and the edgy guitars and certain things on a STRYPER album because that's the sound. So we don't venture too far away from that. When I do a solo album, I have the freedom to venture far from that and try new and different things, and I do.